What's up, Bucs Squad? I'm your host, Jaron Spor. I'm going to tell you why the Bucs will defeat the Buffalo Bills this weekend.
And I'm Marcus Ray, and I'm going to break down this offense and tell you what's going on.
I'm James Yarcho, and I'm going to tell you why everyone needs to pump the brakes on the Grizzard criticism.
Hey, Tampa Bay, it's the Buccaneers squad. Everything Tampa Bay Buccaneers every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of the Sunshine State, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. With a touch of the Buccaneer way, the Buccaneer Squad Show starts now.
What's up, Bucs Nation? Real quick, we got to tell you about FanDuel because this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Like I said, I'm host Jaron Spor. Joining with me, as always, is Marcus and James. We got another squad show for you today. We got to break down the Bucs and the Bills game. Marcus, what are you looking forward to most in this one?
Well, you got two teams coming off a tough loss. I think watching that Dolphins game against Buffalo, they outplayed them, and they got off to a fast start. They hit some big plays. They ran the ball well. They did some things in play action. That was that. And I was just wondering if the Bucs could take a couple of pages out of the Dolphins' offensive playbook. They mixed up personnel, formations, and they took advantage of a Buffalo Bills defense that tackled poorly, couldn't stop the run, and they didn't cover well in one-on-one. So I'm just thinking, seeing how the Bucs performed. Listen, the Bucs didn't play their best game, but they had two opportunities in that fourth quarter to go down and score a touchdown. So that was a very winnable game. They had their opportunities, and I thought the defense made the stop that they needed to make. But when you look at it, I think this Bucs defense, if they tighten up, they can cause Josh Allen and those guys some problems. Josh didn't look very crisp at all. He's fumbling the ball, throwing picks in the red zone. James Cook's fumbling in a scoring position. So at this point, I think this game comes down to, and I'll elaborate a little more, but I want James to go. I think it comes down to stopping the run for the Bucs. Don't give up any big plays. Win the turnover battle. And then offensively, I think Miami, excuse my French, lifted up the skirt of Buffalo. They showed the blueprint on how to attack that defense.
Yeah, I think this one's going to boil down to the run game on both sides. And that's really where my concern lies, right? James Cook, we know how explosive he is, and we know the Bucs have just given up some big gashing run plays to Travion Henderson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and they've been really susceptible to running backs in the passing game. You go back to the first week with Bijan Robinson and breaking off the 50-yarder. Gibbs again was big in the passing game, and we know how important James Cook is in the passing game for Buffalo. But the bigger concern for me is the way that you beat Buffalo is by running the ball. And I don't know if I have the trust in this offensive line to be able to win at the line of scrimmage and create these holes for Rachaad White and Sean Tucker. And I've seen a couple people say it, and I got to say, I agree. I think Sean Tucker should get the lion's share of the carries in this game. I love Rachaad. He's one of my favorite guys on this team. But I think Sean Tucker's style and his physicality and a little bit more of that breakaway potential, I think is what would help the Bucs in this particular matchup. And, I think he's earned it, right? We've seen what Sean Tucker's been able to do in the limited opportunities that he's had. And again, I don't want to take anything away from Rachaad, but I think they need him almost more as a pass catcher than they do a running back. Sean Tucker needs to be the running back in this one. But again, you're not going to have Ben Bredesen in this game dealing with that hamstring injury. So you're back to that interior being Mike Jordan and I'm so sorry. I can't remember the other tackle's name that started on Sunday. I'm having a brain fart. And then Graham Barton, who has struggled all season long. That interior is so weak right now that I don't know if they can win in the trenches in order to get an advantage.
Yeah, and I did see Todd Bowles talk about he's just going to ride the hot hand at running back and Sean Tucker or Rachaad White, whoever it is in this game. I'm going to kind of go off of what Marcus said. I went back and looked at the Buffalo Bills' 3 losses of this season, and there's a common denominator in all 3. So they lost 23-20 to the Patriots, 24-14 to the Falcons, and 30-13, obviously, to the Dolphins. They turned it over 8 times in those 3 games. 2 of the games they turned it over 3 times. Another time they turned it over twice. That's the one thing, obviously pressure, but the Bucs defense has been able to force some turnovers lately, at least. And so that's, I think, is the key to victory for Tampa, is if they can force turnovers, because that is what's holding Buffalo Bills' offense back in those games. They've scored 20 or less in all 3, and it's because they're turning it over. And as Marcus mentioned, a lot of times it's in crucial areas of the field when they're doing that.
And one of the things the Dolphins did, though, like when you can truly run the ball, which I thought Achane did a great job. I mean, he's a home run hitter. I'm not sure if Tucker can give you that same explosive home run type situation. Maybe he can. But if you really watch what the Dolphins did, when they used 2 tight ends, they ran the ball effectively, and then they went play action. And so I thought Miami had them schemed up, and there was a lot of poor tackling. I mean, I know the NFL is based on like great athleticism. I'm just not sure where the football IQ is across the league. I think they're so obsessed with just great athletes that some of the fundamental things about playing certain positions, like tackling, when you look at the touchdown run by Devon Achane, the 59-yarder, I mean, there was a safety that was in the box, and I think it was Cam Lewis. He just dove on the ground. I mean, so I think if the Bucs can get to the second level, James, you talk about winning at the line of scrimmage. If they do win at the line of scrimmage, if they can get to the second level, I feel very confident that there's going to be a ton of missed tackles. And just like we saw the Bucs, they misfit the run in their last game against the Patriots. I think it's just an epidemic in the NFL where these great athletes just aren't football smart, and they're not. It's not that they're not coached up. It's like, trust me, coaches know where to put you on the field. And then his second run, I mean, the 35-yarder, they blocked it well. They schemed him up, ran a little toss sweep, and next thing you know, he's gone for the game. So I just think there were a lot of things that Miami did that, it's a copycat league, and I think that Miami did some things to expose Buffalo. And then also, but the one concern I do have is Josh Allen did show if he extends plays, he will throw the ball down the field, 3rd and long. There were a couple of times he had a 3rd and 16, 4th and 16. I mean, so I would like to see the Bucs get a pass rush on Josh to get him on the ground. If you give him too much time, he's going to find somebody, and he has a plethora of weapons at receiver.
And I want to add something real quick, James, before you go. In their 6 wins, only 1 turnover for Buffalo. So that's literally the difference in all their wins and losses.
Yeah, real quick, apologies to Dan Feeney for forgetting his name. But look, this is a desperate Buffalo Bills team. And I realize that sounds kind of odd when you're talking about a team that would be in the playoffs right now. But they have lost 4 home games in the regular season going back to 2022. And all of a sudden, they are 2 games behind the New England Patriots. This is a must win at home for this team. And I think that's really going to work against the Buccaneers. I don't know if they can come out with the same level of intensity that the Bills will have in their home stadium. And you add to that, the Bucs aren't sitting in that situation. They can lose again this week and still be in first place in their division. So I don't know if, they obviously want to get a win. They want to prove that, they're not this sluggish team that we saw against the Patriots last week. But, Buffalo's hopes of winning the division and hosting playoff games is on the line this week because the Patriots schedule does not get any easier. So I think that's something else that's really working against the Bucs. And Marcus, you made a great point about Josh Allen's ability to extend those plays and continue to look downfield. And that's something that we have seen from Baker Mayfield up until the last 3 weeks. He's not doing that. He's not getting, outside of the pocket. He's not extending plays with his legs. He's not taking off and running. And we talked about it a little bit on that post-game show, but that is really affecting what the Bucs are able to do offensively when Baker is not a threat to take off and move. So he's a sitting duck back there, and that's really going to play into the Bills' hands and their ability to get after the quarterback.
Yeah, and the thing about like running the football the way Miami did, and when you use 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends, you get more guys in the box, and what that does is it creates one-on-one matchups. And I thought the Bills secondary got exposed. I mean Harrison, I know he's a rookie and he's pretty good. You got Cole Bishop back there. I think Ibuka could have a day, and so could Otten, honestly, if the Bucs could run the ball as well as they did a week ago. 2 days ago. If they could get 100+ yards rushing, whether it's Tucker, whether it's White, I think you can get those matchups down the field. And if you do that and Buffalo turns the football over, think about where they turned the ball over. Cook's running on the +30 and coughs it up around the 28. Allen is on a 5-yard line, 3rd and goal, and he choked. Bad pass. They were down 16-0. That was midway through the third quarter. These guys couldn't even score a point to the third quarter, the end of the third quarter. And then Allen, it's just a routine quarterback sneak. He got greedy. So when you say this Bucs team is like in a desperate position to win, I think they played that way in this game. I think they played in a panic mode type situation. The Bucs aren't in the Bills' situation as far as the divisional race. They're in first place. Buffalo's 2 games behind. And I just think that they showed some signs of weakness, like, choking, getting nervous, play calling got a little tight, and then you get guys taken up top. That's because they were able to run the ball. I just think the running game, turnovers, if they can get to Josh Allen and don't give him all day to throw the ball, Coleman, he's a good receiver, and he will beat you. And as we saw, the Bucs gave up some explosives, some deep balls. So the Bucs had some glaring weak spots too, as far as explosive plays in the run game and technique, coverage, man-to-man. So it could come down to really who has the ball last. But I think both teams in their loss, they showed some glaring weaknesses that they have. The Bucs did in pass protection. Even though there weren't a lot of sacks, you still saw some things that we didn't like. But I think Buffalo did the same thing, and Miami was playing with their hair on fire, and they just caught Buffalo slipping. And I think that 13-0 fast start, if the Bucs get off to a fast start the way Miami did, then I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, and to both of y'all's point, we've talked about the schedule for Tampa Bay. This was a tough 3-game stretch. After that, it gets pretty easy. That's why I don't think it's a must-win for Tampa. Someone was asking if it was a must-win for both teams. For the Bills, though, they go to Houston, to Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, to New England, to Cleveland, and then they get Philadelphia and then the Jets to end the year. It is a must-win for them because they have a tough schedule to end the season while already being 2 games back behind New England. But also I wanted to bring up to James's point when he talked about Baker Mayfield and the rushing yards. This is his rushing totals by game. 39 in the first one, then 33, then 44. Then it went to 13, 15, 14, and 3 straight 0-yard games. And not just 0 yards, 0 attempts in those games. So that makes me, and I know we'll get more into it in the third segment, but that makes me think maybe that knee injury that he had when he popped up and had the adrenaline against Houston, maybe that is a little worse than we originally thought.
Yeah, and I know I've been a little bit negative early on, so I do want to throw out some optimism. Look, this defense has been playing absolutely fantastic outside of those couple of miscues that cost them the game against the Patriots. But as long as they're able to contain James Cook, don't let him pull a Travion and bust off a 50 or a 60-yard touchdown. This is a defense that can contain this Bills offense. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Elijah Moore, Josh Palmer, those guys are not striking fear into the hearts of the Buccaneers secondary. Then you have Dalton Kincaid, who may not play in this game. That is huge. Dawson Knox is a solid tight end, but he's not Dalton Kincaid, and their offense runs through James Cook in the tight end position. So the Bucs defense should be able to do enough in this game to keep the Bucs in it. And again, I know we're going to get to the offense, but it's going to be on the offense to capitalize on those opportunities and not throw them away like they did against New England.
Yeah, for sure. All right, coming up next, Todd Bowles gave an update on Bucky Irving. Not the update we were hoping for. We'll talk about that coming up next.
If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and they simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SAD, software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos that your software created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. Right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnfl. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnfl. That's rippling.com/lockedonnfl for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, Bucs Squad, we're back for another segment. Let's talk about Bucky Irving because we were hoping for a better update, but Todd Bowles didn't give the people what they wanted. It sounds like, from what he has stated, Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin will miss this game. And then he said for Bucky to return, he has to prove he can take a hit. So, Marcus, when you hear that from someone that's dealing with the shoulder, what is your first thought?
Number one, it tells me that he's not ready to play. I mean, when you use words like hopefully, first of all, I just think Todd Bowles' press conference are just so entertaining because he looks so mean and he looks like he doesn't want you to ask him a question. And then his response is kind of like very short and direct, and it gives you no facial expression. I just love watching his press conferences for years now. But to your question, it's like this. The Bucs are in first place without Bucky, and they're looking to make a run. All right. You have serviceable running backs with Tucker and Rachaad White. They're not Bucky though, but they are doing enough to do their part for this team to win. I take it when a head coach speaks that way, they'll never tell you everything and they'll give you just enough. And when he said, we'll see if he can take a hit, I think that was an honest response. I think he legitimately – see, you don't tackle in the NFL. Like, so years ago when I played in college at Michigan, we didn't tackle during the week, but we tackled during camp. In the NFL, you never tackle until the preseason, like, or unless you have a scrimmage or something. But they don't know because if you do test his shoulder, whether it's a running back on linebacker drill, whether it's inside run 9-on-7 or it's some type of team-oriented practice, if he takes a shot and he is ready and then he gets re-injured, then he's back to square one. So I really think that Bowles is saying Bucky, it's not the ankle, it's the shoulder. Bucky probably can go, but none of us will know until he takes a shot. And you don't want to waste that shot in practice. It's going to have to come in the game. I think he's a week away. And you know, there's strength training that goes in there. There's physical therapy. So you don't want to lose progress on a guy like Bucky who's so important to the second half of your season and the postseason. So when Todd Bowles says that, I think Bucky is getting close to being ready to go. They don't want an 80% Bucky. They want a 100% Bucky, a rebuilt shoulder Bucky, not a Bucky that can get in there and they're relying on him. He practices all week and then he gets his shoulder rocked and knocked out of place again, and then you lose him for the year.
Well, and Marcus, I want to ask you this because you kind of brought it up, but give a peek behind the curtain. You know, how do they know that the shoulder is ready to take a shot? Is this something that they can test? Because like you said, they're not tackling in practice. So is this something that they can test, or is this based off of the word of the medical staff plus the physical therapist plus, you know, maybe taking him in for x-rays and MRIs to check that way? And is it a matter of when the doctors and everybody says that he's ready, you wait another week before you go ahead and put him in and keep him on that routine? Like, how do they judge something like that in the NFL now?
That's a great question. From my experience, what they do is you're right. I think you're onto something there with X-rays, right? And then there's physical therapy, but they test your strength. Like if they ask him to bench press 225 and he's 10 reps short of his normal, then you know that the strength isn't there. And then they actually measure like by degree how far your shoulder goes back. I mean, these guys are like, when they start evaluating your injuries, your range of motion, tender to the touch, X-rays, physical therapy, but there's no way of knowing if you're ready for contact or not. They just want to know if the shoulder is as back to normal as possible through all of those measures that I just said. So X-rays, range of motion, PT, sensitive to the touch, and then it's also strength. So they have to test your strength, but that range of motion with a shoulder is very important too. And then it's the eye test. I mean, they can look and tell is something out of place. I mean, is there a bone sticking out? So but trust and believe when he does return, they're going to have extra padding on there. Like he'll have his regular shoulder pads, but they'll wrap his shoulder, put an extra little pad on there. So they're not going to put him out there, but once he clears all of the things that they put you through the protocol, then that's when you get cleared, and then you find out once you play the game.
I'm glad you asked that because all I can picture is if you've seen We Are Marshall, Anthony Mackie's character, Nate Ruffin, where he's banging him on his shoulder and he's like, my shoulder's fine. He's like crying. That's all I can picture the whole time we're talking because they're not tackling. So I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, well, in my own personal experience, a lot of Locked On Bucs listeners of yours know my son tore his ACL last year, and he's been going through the process of recovering from the surgery and everything. And I know how they test him, but testing a 16-year-old at a local hospital is going to be very different than how an NFL team approaches things. My son's also not smart, so he's playing before he's cleared by the doctors, but that's a whole different issue. But yeah, I think, Marcus, you're 100% right that Bowles is not going to risk putting Bucky out there and immediately losing him again, right? You can't have not just the production loss, but the emotional, for lack of a better term, devastation of another Mike Evans situation where you get Bucky back and you're hyped and the offense is like, all right, here we go. We can start to take off again. And then you lose him for the rest of the season before he even finishes his first game back. I think that might take such a massive toll on the team and the players in that locker room and the fan base that would be the beginning of the end of the season. So yeah, it really sucks that Bucky's not going to be out there again. Hopefully it's that situation where they think that he probably would be ready to play, but they're keeping him out this game and saying, okay, let's get him indoors, not in the elements in Buffalo in the cold where that shoulder might actually tense up a little bit more and he'd be more susceptible to re-injury. Let's get him to Los Angeles. That's the game that we really need to win. And that's where we can start to focus our energy. But once he gets back, if he's the Bucky that we all expect, this offense is going to go up a couple of notches just strictly based on his ability to escape tackles, break tackles, find the open space and be so explosive.
Yeah, I think my biggest two question marks is if they're not sure if he can take a hit yet, is it because like Marcus said, he still has some tests to go through and stuff like that, or are they seeing something where it's like, I don't know how stable that shoulder is? Because I've read multiple reports and then doctor reports and things like that, and obviously they don't see the scans and they're not with him every day, so you never know. But they were saying if that's the case, then you're looking at him being possibly out for the year because it might take surgery to stabilize it, and that is worst case scenario. The other one that's kind of curious to me is they didn't put him on IR when he originally got injured, and this is game 5, so that he would be out, or I think it's 5 or 6, but nonetheless, that would have put him out 4 games. So that tells me that maybe it's worse than they originally thought, and that's another red flag that he's not recovering as fast as they thought he was or would.
Well, yeah. I think there's 2 things to consider. Whenever you see a head coach in a press conference, they're just surviving the conversation. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that Todd Bowles wants to let the media James, Jaron, you, me. He doesn't want anybody to know. But think about it this way too. There's another side of this coin. The Bucs are playing with house money. They're in first place. What is the rush to bring them back? So
Right.
if you think about it, they're a game or two. There's still 2 weeks before they're even getting their spot threatened, their number one spot threatened in the NFC South. So whether Bucky's ready to go or not, he could be 100%. And they're just saying, we're going to play him when it's time to play him, when we need him. We all want him out there so the offense looks better, and we don't want the Bucs to lose games like they lost on Sunday. But when you're in first place, that's all these coaches care about, is winning the division. If you can win the division with what you have, and you don't even have your best guys out there, and I also think it doesn't apply to just Bucky. I think it applies to Chris. Not sure about Mike, but definitely I think Godwin is a guy that they don't want to bring back too soon because they don't have to. And even James, you said it, even if they go 1-2 and beat the Rams in this 3-game stretch, they're still where they want to be. And then you start getting into Thanksgiving in December, and then you make your run with all your guys, but don't put them out there too soon if you don't have to. And I think that's the chess game and the mental warfare that's being played by Todd Bowles with the media and with his offense and with the rest of the division.
Yeah, it's something that I talked about a lot in the offseason leading up to the year, when people were kind of worried about Chris Godwin not practicing, and then he didn't start on the IR, and you had all the situations. Look, I don't need Bucky on the field this week. I don't need Chris. I don't need Mike. I don't need J-Mac. I don't need those guys on the field this week or next week or the week after. I need them in December. I need them in January. That's when it's going to matter the most. And even if the Bucs lose this game and lose to the Rams, and it's like, okay, here's the annual Bucs multi-game losing streak where they go into this lull before they go on a tear the rest of the year, they're still going to be in a good position to win the division. You still get the Panthers twice. You're going to control your own destiny at that point. You beat the Panthers, you're going to win the division. The Falcons are not going to win this division.
Right.
That's probably going to come back and bite me. But that's what you have to do. Win your divisional games. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. I don't know if they're supposed to beat the Bills. I don't know if they're supposed to beat the Rams with as beat up as they are right now and having to go into their houses. But you need those key players. And I'm going to include Ben Bredesen in that. Mm-hmm. You need those guys in December and into January, and then hopefully into February. And when you bring him back too quick, which might have been the problem with Chris Godwin, I know he wanted to get out on the field, but that might have caused the injury that he's dealing with now, since it's in a different part of his leg from where he had the surgery. Might have been a case of overcompensating and putting the stress on a different part of his leg. So let these guys heal. We all want to see Bucky out there. We all want to see Chris and J-Mac and Mike all come back. Let them heal, because then by time they are returning in early to mid-December, and then they start to kind of find their groove before January starts, this team's going to be really dangerous.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that the division games, because this isn't college football where you have to win 85, 90% of your games and you got to win by 20 points for style points to get into the playoff. It's very simple. It's cut and dry. Win your division, you're in the playoff. And you get a top 4 seed. You're going to host your first game at home. It's very cut and dry of how it is. And so you don't need to rush anything for sure. And, I did see that Chris Godwin has done some running, so maybe he's a little farther along to possibly being able to return. He mentioned Hassan Reddick as another guy that could return somewhat soon. And now, I will say Rick Stroud, I believe it was, tweeted that they don't plan to test Bucky's shoulder this week. So that is something to kind of keep an eye on. Maybe it's tested next week and he's out even another game. But nonetheless, you got to get the team healthy if you're going to make that run.
And James, you couldn't be more correct. It's like you're talking January. December. College football conference championships are decided in November, but in the NFL it's December. And then when you can get a fully loaded stock of groceries, a cabinet full of groceries, healthy and ready to go, man. The Bucs, if they can find a way to hold on until the cavalry comes home, I mean, it's going to get scary. And they almost beat, well, they had a chance to beat a very good Patriots team who didn't limp into that game with all their stars out.
Yeah, for sure. All right, coming up next, we got to talk about the offense. Is it the coaching, the quarterback, the injuries, the offensive line? There could be a lot of reasons. We'll talk about that coming up next.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, Buck Squad, we're back with another segment. What do we think about the offense? Who is to blame? Probably a lot of blame to go around, but Marcus, what have you seen from the offense?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I've been watching this team all season, and I'm thinking to myself, cut Grizz some slack, man. I mean, he's not even shooting with a fully loaded clip, okay? I mean, he's out here coaching with what he has. Think about this, man. When you're missing a $22 million right tackle, $22 million receiver in Godwin, $20 million in Evans, that's $60 million worth of contracts, not even to mention J-Mac, 8 touchdowns in last season. I just think that we're all asking him to shovel the driveway while it's still snowing. and I mean, and it's one of those things where it's like, what do you want the guy to do, man? I mean, they're right there. We're watching a half-loaded Bucs offense, a banged-up quarterback that's toughening out, that won't run and give you everything he has. So I'm really looking at it saying, but I'm not going to let Grizz completely off the hook. I mean, this offense is averaging 328 in total offense, about 100 yards a game on the ground. I think they need to get that 24-point average up. And like I mentioned earlier, they had an opportunity to win. I just don't think the offense is clutch. I think everybody's gripe with Grizz right now is, yeah, you got your guys out, but dial something up. Go in the kitchen, open up the cabinet and the refrigerator, season it up, and just survive the night, survive the day. Give us something good to eat. But as you look at their last 3 games, just going back to Detroit, glaring 41 yards rushing. Ibuka, only 4 catches for 60 yards. Baker wasn't great, 28 of 50, turned the ball over, and they had 2 turnovers, gave up 4 sacks. So we're talking offensive line now, pass protection, run blocking. Another thing to consider against the Lions, the Bucs, they didn't score in the first quarter, and they didn't score in the fourth quarter. So what we're asking Grizz to do is, can you get off to a fast start the way the Dolphins did? Can you find a way to score in the fourth quarter when we need you to? And so we don't care if the Bucs win 3-0. But at the same time, if you're in a winnable situation, win it. And we know what they looked like against the Saints. Nelson had to get it started on defense. Defense was lights out. Still only had 88 yards rushing. And Ibuka only had 3 receptions for 35 yards. 1 turnover, 3 sacks. But the one thing they did in that game is they outscored the Saints 16-0 in the second half when it was only 7-3 at halftime. Mm-hmm. So, and then we already talked about the Patriots loss. So I just think we're asking Grizz to just make do, make ends meet, find a way to when your bills are tight and you and your wife go to work and you look at your bills and you say, we got to feed these kids and we got to find a way to keep the lights on. That's all we're asking them to do. We're not asking them to stockpile the savings account. We just want you to make ends meet, Grizz, when you have the opportunity. But we need a little more creativity. And I really think if they just mimic some of the Dolphins, I thought that was some of the best play calling I've seen out of the Miami Dolphins. I mean, Tua's going to throw a couple bad balls, but the way they schemed Buffalo up, because they ran the ball and then they found that one-on-one matchup and they used play action pass to their advantage. And I think Grizz has to hang his hat on trying to run the ball so he can set up play action pass.
Yeah, and I said a lot about Grizz on my post-game live over at Locked On Bucs, so I'm not going to dive into all of that. But Marcus, you're 100% right. I think the standard that people have right now is unfair considering what he's dealing with, right? A lot of people thought it was going to be copy and paste from the Liam Cohen days because that's kind of what we heard, right? It was going to be a really similar system, couple of tweaks here and there, but Grizz was the third down guy. You go back to last year, the Bucs had the best third down conversion rate in the NFL at 50.9%. This year, they're down to 36.5%. They're in the bottom third of the NFL. But I want everybody to kind of take a step back and look at what was Liam Cohen able to accomplish last year after he lost Mike and Chris. He still had Bucky. He still had Rashad. He still had all 5 starting offensive linemen, and the Bucs put up 26 against the Falcons and lost, 24 against the Chiefs and lost, 20 against the 49ers and lost. So it wasn't great for Cohen, and Grizz is dealing with far more adversity. You've had one offensive lineman all season play every game beginning to end. In the first 3 games, he was playing at a different position than what he's supposed to. You've lost 3 of your top 4 pass catchers. You have lost your star running back. This is not the offense that we were supposed to see with Josh Grizzard. This is the offense that we're seeing that is a byproduct of the circumstances and the situation that they are in. And to his credit, I think he's doing a lot better in this situation than any other NFL team would be in the same situation. If you take a look at the Rams or the are the Lions 6-3 after 9 weeks if they lose Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams and Gibbs and Penei Sewell? Are they in this situation? I don't think so. So I think the bigger issue is the constant, revolving door along the offensive line, and then the injury that Baker is dealing with. Jaron, you pointed out that knee injury against Houston in week 2. I'm going to point out that scramble that he had against the 49ers when he stretched out to get the first down and he got up and he was flexing and he was all hyped. I think that play right there, the adrenaline was pumping. That to me was the play that injured the oblique. That the way he stretched his body out and the impact that he had going to the ground, I think that's what did it. You combine the knee with an oblique, and now you have a Baker that can't run the football. He can't step into his throws. It's affecting his accuracy. It's affecting his velocity, and he doesn't have the arm strength because of the pain in the oblique that he's dealing with. So I think those are far bigger issues than what is going on with Josh Grizzard as a play caller.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the oblique injury because I think that is what's causing him to miss some of the layups with his accuracy. And we even saw this at the college level. One thing that we're seeing, Garrett Nussmeier just got benched at LSU. He was a guy projected to go the first round. Well, reports were earlier in the year before the Clemson game that he hurt his oblique, and you can see it when he's playing, and he's never really been healed from it, and he's missing throws that he was not even close to missing last year, and it's resulted in him getting benched. But the funny thing is, and I don't want to just say numbers tell the full story because they don't, and I'm not saying the offense played this great game, but if you look at the numbers against the Patriots, it's actually very similar to the first 6 games of the season. So it's not like they just had this terrible game again against the Patriots. Now, the 2 games before that weren't great, but they came out of it and did a decent job. I do want to ask you, Marcus, because I hear this a lot. So I see when teams lose players, key players, we see an offensive coordinator do one of 2 things. One, they either dial back the creativity because they know they're at a disadvantage, or they say, we need to up the creativity because that's going to give us the better advantage because we're lower on talent. Which one do you usually see? Because I feel like Grizzard has done the dial it back because of all the injuries.
Well, I think it's more dial it back when you change out your quarterback. I mean, when you have a a different starter at quarterback that may not be able to do what your starter does. Just let me give you a very obvious example. Let's say if you're a drop back passing team, and your quarterback and he goes down, but the backup is a runner. So now you have to change your game plan from actually being like a running from a drop back passing team to we have to put some quarterback run in, maybe some triple option, some RPO. So, but because that's not the Bucs case, I think what Grizz is trying to do, and it also depends on the opponent. So this is not high school football where teams actually run the same same plays every week. It's more of a situation where you look at the film, you look at what you have, you look at what you do. So then you ask yourself, okay, this is what Tez Johnson does well. This is what Ibuka does well. How can we get him the ball in these situations? So what you do is tighten up the situational football. It's not even about a matter of being creative. It's just a matter of seeing what worked on film against, like I mentioned, what the Dolphins did to Buffalo. You look at that and say, well, that's not who we are, but I can I can line up like this. I can go 12 personnel. I can motion Cade across. We can throw a deep over route, a little bit of play action. I don't want Baker to get hit. So it's more so of who you're playing, the hand you dealt, as far as and what do the guys that you have do well. Like, don't ask Tez to be Mike Evans. Just don't ask him to do that. Don't even ask Tucker to be Bucky. What you have to do where the creative part comes in is you say, well, maybe if we run this blocking scheme on 2nd and 7 with Tucker, he can get us 8 yards in a first down. See, the Bucs have to stay out of 3rd and long. That's where they're really suffering. Against the Lions, they were 4 of 16 on 3rd down. When you see 25%, and then against the Saints, I believe they were 3 of 13. When you see those poor numbers, one of two things are happening. You're losing on 1st down, and you're somehow in long yardage by the time you get to 3rd down. When you check the analytics, when you're at 3rd and 1, they go way up. 3rd and 2, way up. So Grizz has to get more creative on 1st down. Get creative on 1st. Get 6 yards. Get 5. Put the defense on their heels. I don't care if whatever you run. So I don't think it's a matter of him reinventing the wheel or trying to get too cute. It's just know your opponent, know your roster, look at your scheme and say, this is what I think we can do against that team.
Yeah, and you nailed it. You can't go out there and expect the players that you have to be the players that you're missing. Like, I still go back, and this isn't all to say that I agree with Grizz 100% of the time, because I don't. Because one of the plays that sticks out to me the most is, why are you throwing a back shoulder fade in the end zone to Sterling Shepard? That is not Mike Evans. That is not what Sterling Shepard is out there to do. If you're going to throw a back shoulder fade to anybody in this offense that was on the field, it should either be Ibuka or Otten. But you can't ask Shep to head top a double team for a 1st down. That's not his game. That's not who he is. Like you said, you can't ask Tucker to be Bucky. So it is about putting your players in a position to succeed. And I think that's where Grizz has come up a little bit short. It's like he's trying to run a vanilla version of the offense that they were supposed to run, and he has not fully integrated the pieces that he has into the roles that he needs them to play. Because you're not going to replace the trio of receivers. You're not going to replace Bucky. So there is room for growth for Grizz here. But we also have to remember he is a first-year offensive coordinator. He is a first-time play caller. And just because the Bucs aren't scoring 30 a game doesn't mean that he's not doing a good enough job. But there are aspects that he can do better. And I hope he's studying that Miami tape, because, Marcus, you brought it up quite a few times. Miami schemed them up perfectly. The Bucs have good enough or better weapons in some cases than Miami did. They should be able to find some success against the Bills defense.
And I definitely understand the vanilla offense, especially when the injuries first started happening, because we got to remember they're starting basically two rookie wide receivers with Emeka and Tez. So there's stuff like that you have to work through. But now they've been in it so long, you would think they would start opening it up and changing things, because Tez actually gives you something that, even if everyone's healthy, is a little different than what you had. And so, to James's point, it seems like he's still running just the vanilla version of what they were going to run with everyone healthy, whereas he could change some things up because of the different things that Tez does, and now Mecca's in a kind of a different role too, because he has to be the wide receiver one. So we'll see what they end up doing on Sunday. But coming up next, we will give our score prediction and our final keys to the game. Don't go anywhere. Well, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a single game, same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Buck Squad, we're back for one final segment, and it's our score prediction and our just final keys to the game. Marcus, what do you got in this one?
Man, I'm just thinking about my man Grizz, man. I mean, everybody's asking him, like, you cut his hands off and then say he can't catch the ball. And it's like, come on, man. And then you want, you know what I mean? So I'm I don't know. I'm just a guy that's optimistic. And I'm going to look at the last week's game, and I'm going to say this. I think the Patriots were a better football team. I just think not just on that day. I think right now the Bucs had 2 weeks to prepare for that one, and it didn't show. Like they looked like a team that was lethargic, maybe had too many days off. And the Bucs look like a team that went down there and just forgot that it's the NFL and a team that has a losing record can beat you. And so with both teams coming off a loss, I don't expect a lot of points here. I don't. I'm thinking closer to like a 21-17 ball game. And I'm going with Buffalo. I'm picking Buffalo to win this game because I'm a little disappointed in the effort that I saw from the Bucs, tackling, run support, big plays, situational football. Grizz has to show me that he's clutch. I think Josh Allen is going to rebound. I think Buffalo can run the ball just well enough to open up some things in the pass game versus the Bucs secondary. My keys to the game, I think it comes down to this. For Miami, get off to another fast start. Run the football the way you did last week. I mean, they had 197 yards. I don't think they'll do that against the Bucs, but if they can get about 125 to 150, it's going to be a problem. And take your shots. I'm sorry, that was Miami against Buffalo. I just think with Cook and those guys, I think if Josh Allen can stay in manageable down situations, comes down to stopping the run, don't give up the big plays. I think whoever wins the turnover battle and the sack battle wins this game. I'm going to give you one more, James. Red zone offense, touchdown versus field goals. The one thing that Buffalo struggled with defensively, especially on that first touchdown in the back of the end zone, Miami did a very good job of running what's called a levels concept, where you get guys where you high-low each other like that. And Buffalo struggled with that. I don't know if Tampa Bay has the big play ability right now without their guys. I think they have a bunch of possession receivers. They got a Mecca. He's the one guy that you know that can cook you. Everybody else is the guy that you say, let him shoot. He can't beat me. So I think that the Buffalo is going to try to take a Mecca out of the game because the Bucs might not be able to run the ball as efficiently as Miami did. But if the Bucs can, I think they'll be fine. But I'm going to pick, because this isn't a must win for Tampa, I think we're going to see some of that same effort of we're in first place. It's an AFC team. We'll worry about the Rams next week. I think because that's on the table, that's a level of complacency. And what complacency really means is you're unaware of present danger. So this is it's not a throwaway game. It can help the Bucs more than it can hurt them. But I think for Buffalo, they're in a desperate situation here. I think they need this one, and they got embarrassed last week. I think they're better than they showed, but defensively they have some glaring weaknesses. They don't tackle well. They give up the big play, and they don't stop the run. So, but Tampa Bay doesn't run the ball well. Baker's not healthy, and that offensive line isn't dominating. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go 24-17 Buffalo.
Yeah, and I'll give my final score prediction on my Friday live as I usually do, but I'm with you. I think this is going to be a close game. The Bucs tend to play the Bills pretty tough. They haven't come out on the right side the last time, might even be the last two times. It took overtime for Brady to beat the Bills a couple of years ago on a Brashad Perryman catch and run. But look, the way you beat the Buffalo Bills is by running the ball. They're 30th in the NFL in rush yards per game, 31st in the NFL in yards per rush. I don't think the Bucs have the bodies up front in order to do that. And if you're dropping Baker back 40 times to throw the ball, this is, a defense that's 5th in the NFL in sacks per pass attempt. They are 5th in the NFL in goal to go efficiency. Their red zone defense is good. They get after the quarterback. That's not the recipe for success. And I feel like this is a game that could feel like it's getting out of hand early, where the Bucs become desperate enough that they are just continuously dropping back to pass over and over. Whereas in reality, the recipe for success here is you have to slow the game down. You have to slow it down to a painful crawl for the fans watching, where they are going, oh my God, this is the most boring game of all time. But you run it on first down with Sean Tucker. You run it on second down with Sean Tucker. Maybe you throw a little hitch or a quick comeback to move the sticks, and then you run it again, and you run it again, and you run it again. That if you can succeed in the trenches, and Sean Tucker can get you 3 on first down and 3 on second down to give you a manageable down and distance on third, you're also controlling the clock. You're keeping James Cook and Josh Allen on the sideline for as long as possible, and you're resting your defense. That is the recipe for success in the Bucs, or for the Bucs in this one. I don't have enough faith in the offensive line as it is to be able to accomplish that. So I am leaning the Bills in this one. Again, I'll do my final prediction on Friday, because there are some interesting potential injuries on Buffalo side where it may actually create a little bit of an advantage for the Bucs. But yeah, right now on a Tuesday evening, I'm leaning Buffalo to win a huge game for them at home.
I think I might be the only one going with the Bucs in this one. It sounds like I'm going 24-23, and there's really 3 reasons why I'm going to go with that. So I was checking the weather. There's a 30% chance of rain during the game, 70% chance of rain for the day. That bodes well for the turnovers usually. And so with Buffalo struggling to take care of the football, and fumbling has been an issue. Josh Allen's had a fumbling issue really since he came into the league. I think the Bucs defense is going to force some turnovers. I will say, and I understand not having faith in the running game yet, but they did do pretty well against the league's #1 ranked rush defense last week. And as you both mentioned, the Bills really struggle stopping the run. So can they kind of carry some of that momentum into this game? We'll see. But that's one reason. Another reason is, if you have followed Baker Mayfield since his Oklahoma days, when he looks that upset after a game that he just had in his press conference, he almost always balls out in that next one. That's just how he is. And he could be like, have one arm hanging down his leg and stuff, and he's still going to just have this incredible game. I don't know how he does it, but it just feels like that's just the kind of player he is. He also usually always ups his performance when he's playing against guys in his class. So Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, guys like that. And so I could see him having a good game for that. My last reason is, so I also host the Locked On Mississippi State podcast. And on Thursdays, we do our upset picks of the week. I have been on a long upset pick streak because I pick the team that loses the week before, who everyone's down on, to win that next week. And that's how I've had my streak going. So now you can do that for either team in this scenario, but I'm going to take the positive side and kind of go that streak, and hopefully it's the Bucs that come out on top of this one.
Yeah, it's you told us you live in Oklahoma, so that's Baker against his class and the way he looks after a loss. No, you know the interesting thing about this is both teams, the Bills and the Bucs, they lost the same way. Mm-hmm. Explosives in the run game, explosives in the pass game. And so it just makes me wonder, as they both prepare, it could come down to who makes the least amount of mistakes and penalties too. Special teams could play a factor in this one. And it just kind of like, you look at it and say, why did those explosive runs happen against the Bucs? And it's really the same reason it happened against Buffalo. So the team that can minimize their mistakes, this is where coaching comes in. This is where you evaluate the film and you say, hey, McCullum, you were too high in your back pedal. The guy broke your cushion. Why didn't you turn and run? Play deep to short, son. Gotcha, coach. And then if you're Harrison on the other side for Buffalo, he got took up top by Waddell, just ran straight by him. So both teams are licking their chops offensively, looking at the defense. It's just a matter of, can you block it well enough and duplicate what you saw on film? And when I said Miami ran for 197 yards, if the Buccaneers run for 197 yards, then they're going to win by 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So it's a copycat league. It's whoa, that worked. But it's also, I hope they don't do the same thing the other team did to us. So both teams really, I think the onus is on the defenses. I mean, both of these defenses laid an egg. Let's just say it for what it is. I mean, it's a National Football League, man. I know it's hard to stop people, but you can't miss tackles. You just can't misfit the run and don't have gap integrity. And you just can't give up the deep ball. If you're going to give up the deep ball in this league, then it's going to be a long day. The other thing you can't do is turn it over. So the Bucs may have a slight advantage because Buffalo is turnover prone. And the way Josh Allen fumbled on that quarterback sneak, that he just got greedy. And then if you're going to get greedy, just go down. They punched the ball out. Cook coughed it up. And then Allen throws the pick in a scoring situation. If Buffalo plays like that, I don't care how many points the Bucs score, they're probably going to win. Turnovers and big plays are going to impact this game.
I'll throw out one more thing that I'd really like to see, and I'll probably expand on it just because we're coming up against the clock on my next show over at Locked On Bucs. I want to see more of Cam Johnson early in this game. I want to see a couple of plays dialed up for him where it could be a quick out, a quick slant, something. Get the ball in his hands. And what I think that has the opportunity to do is if you establish him early on as a legitimate target, a legitimate weapon for the offense, now all of a sudden you already have a Buka. He's going to draw attention. You have Tez. He's been making plays. You start bringing Cam Johnson onto the field as a legit threat, as well as maybe you bump Cade Otton out into the slot and spread it out 4 wide. That could spread out the defense enough that there's not going to be as much pressure on the offensive line because the defense has to respect that. It's going to clear some running lanes for Rashad and Tucker. They haven't had that threat of spreading the defense out with all of their pass catchers. So establish Cam Johnson early, and that might lead to actually some big chunk plays in the run game.
Yeah, even in the screen game, just something, get him some touches for sure. And the last thing I will say, Josh Allen has been turnover prone really his whole career. Outside of last year, he's been turnover prone really his whole career. And he kind of reminds me of Brett Favre when you always hear those stories of how defenses played against him where they're like, he's going to throw you 1 or 2. You just have to catch it. And I feel like that's very similar to what Josh Allen is, where he's going to throw you 1 or 2, or he's going to cough up 1 or 2. You just got to come up with it, because if it bounces into the Buffalo's hands or you drop the interception, I think Buffalo would win the game in that scenario. But if they can't get to, I don't think they'll get to 195 yards rushing, but can they get to like 140, 150, just something to keep the Buffalo Bills defense kind of off balance? I think if they can do that, then they could have some success in this game, but it's going to be obviously a very tough one. But if they can get it done, now you got momentum going into Los Angeles. So, and as we mentioned, you don't have to win it, but it would be nice to win it. So,
Right.
all right. Thank you, Bucs Squad, for joining us for this show. We will be back with our post-game reaction following the Bucs and Bills game, probably around 8 o'clock Eastern time at night on Sunday. So look for that. And until next time, fire the cannons.